Hello and welcome to another episode here of False Confidence. I am your host, Katie Stowe, and this podcast series is really for my fellow Gen Z female leaders who want to reach the minds and hearts of young female Gen Z for Christ, who want to pull them out of the grasp of evil culture, of the crazy war on traditional values, the war on biblical and Christian values, and the brainwashing, genuinely y'all, the brainwashing of young female future leaders of America. I see it every single day, and I hope and pray that I am creating some type of impact, being used by the Lord to reach just one more person, one more ear, one more young female leader for Christ, and to inspire a sort of biblically honorable revolution that really says, we're not going to buy into this idea that young women are just like this. We're not going to buy into the cultural norms. We're not going to buy into what the culture says is good and evil, what the culture deems right and wrong. We're actually going to go back to a source that is true all of the time, that is accurate and anchored into objectiveness all of the time. We're going to anchor into a place and a person that deserves our worship and love because he is worthy of it. We're going to anchor into a God who isn't just out there somewhere, but a father to us. You know, for some of you who are passionate about reaching young women for Christ, maybe you don't have a father. And so this relationship with Jesus has been your dad, right? Your father, that image of somebody who protects you, who is your protector, who is the person who keeps you safe, who defends you, who stands for you, who nurtures you and encourages you and looks for the best for you and from you, right? Who really pushes you forward and encourages you forward. Those are all beautiful fatherly attributes. And those are things that we can find in our personal relationship with the Lord. You know, in many ways, I'm speaking to the choir, but I want to really encourage those of you who listen to this, who are leaders in the Gen Z generational space, who want to see young women rising above the, cultural norms, rise above the crazy war on biblical and Christian values. I'm going to talk about a lot of what that actually looks like in my own experiences in secular psychology-driven spaces where nothing was wrong, nothing was right, everything was right. Therefore, like if nothing's wrong and nothing's right, then everything is right. Everything is deemed as okay. Everything's deemed as fine. Everything is just neutral, as we were often taught to say. And we're going to talk about how that is absolutely influencing and impacting young women, especially around our identity. And that's like the very specific piece that we're going to address today, which is identity. Identity is everything. And I just recorded a podcast with my friend over on the Jesus is Mine podcast. We have a lot of content getting prepared to send out to you, which I'm super excited. So if you haven't gone and checked that out, I'll make sure that I link down below that podcast, as well as we'll be doing that co-hosted together. This space is to address for the leaders the very specific twists and turns that are happening in the culture. We need to be aware of what is going on, the messages that are being sent, the agendas that are being pushed, the subtle manipulative ways that culture is using things that sound good to push and peddle evil, that to push and peddle women who lack character, who lacked critical thinking, who lack discernment and wisdom. These things are so incredible for us to be able to function and to stand in confidence, in peace around our identity, who we are, what that means. Does that change every day because our emotions are attached to what we think about ourselves and what we believe about ourselves? There's so much chaos happening in our own internal wanderings is our identity dependent on that? Right? We're going to talk about that today as well. So I want to start by sharing some of my story because I've shared some of it here on the channel, but I want to share it specifically in this context. There's so much, and I want to really dwindle it down to as basic of a story and a point as I can make. But, I spent almost 4 years in a transformational leadership world that was very much utilizing modern psychology, utilizing positive thinking, utilizing manifestation tactics, utilizing a lot of even borderline demonic approaches to thinking our future forward and getting clearer on who we really are, removing all of the blocks that were stopping us from creating our best life, our best business. This was really the nature of everything that the space was about. And I got wrapped up into this world through a charismatic leader who said that she was doing all of this because she believed in God and Jesus was the anchor that was building her business. And that all sounded amazing to me as in a lot of ways, a young Christian. Even though I had been saved since I was really, really young, this was a big, big individual, adult, independent test of my faith and what I really believed in. And if I believed there was more and there was extra than what the Bible actually said. And this was the world, the verbiage, here's how you're going to make more money. You're going to make more impact, more influence. You're going to change the world. God's going to use you. God uses you when you have lots of money. It was this whole mentality that the more money you have, the more impact and influence you have for Christ. The more influence you have, the more incredible, amazing things that, God and the angels will celebrate you in that you've accomplished. It really came down to the output that I can create will define how I genuinely, realistically feel about myself. Now, their verbiage was very different. Unconditional love, you're worthy just the way you are, all of that stuff. Very, very positive affirmation stuff. But at the end of the day, the core messaging was there are things that are not working about you. You are the problem, but you're also the solution. So it was a self-sufficient mentality around leadership, personal development, responsibility for all humanity. All of these things sounded really good. They almost even sounded biblically aligned, but they only sounded biblically aligned because I really wanted them to be true. I wanted it to be true that I could figure out how to be the best version of myself by just practicing and working hard and positively affirming myself. I wanted to believe that I could create all humanity unity just by my own intention and my own responsibility. I wanted to believe that I could make huge impact and huge influence, and that it just took investing in another program, investing in another round, investing in it was a scheme. It was a lie. But the saddest part when I walked away from all of it was realizing that I had isolated myself entirely from the real world, and I had created my own fantasy, my own other world that had genuine real people in it, but we were all convincing ourselves of this other world, this future self that we wanted, and then to try to make that future self who we were today. And what's particularly shocking as I look back on that season of my early 20s, is that it happened so quickly and yet so subtly that I really had no idea it was happening. It really truly was like the frog in the cold water being heated up. It didn't know it was being cooked from the inside out because the water was heating up so slowly. And really it took a matter of minutes, in this case a matter of years, for me to be totally indoctrinated into the idea that I was the problem, but I was also the solution. And the more that I saw myself as the solution, the more that was somehow true. what really got me to wake up, well, truly the Lord used a lot of work and a lot of disappointment to make me realize that chasing my own dreams and my own inner dialogue and my own affirmations and my own loving of myself was empty at the very minimum. And that all of the positive thinking and the, seeing my whole life as a phoenix rising, that I was rising from all this victimness, and it was almost like we had to create the victim mentality to then be able to rise from it. We were creating problems in our own lives to then be the source of the solution for it. Which, if you think about it logically, does not make a lot of sense and isn't particularly productive. But through it, it felt very emotional. It felt very productive. It felt very effective. It felt very lethargic and liberating and powerful. All of these things that I wanted in and of myself. Modern culture, psychology, victimhood to the phoenix rising sort of mentality that we see all over social media, all over culture, all over music, all over entertainment, all over education. It's being pushed very specifically to women because it gives us a sense of purpose and meaning in this constant rat race of victim to phoenix rising. And a phoenix is like this image of a flying bird on fire rising from the ashes, powerful, majestic, worthy, all these things. And what's so sad is that none of that was actually real, and none of it was actually very productive. It wasn't eternally productive. It wasn't spiritually productive. It wasn't even emotionally productive, because while it felt lethargic in the moment, I wasn't really identifying anything real. It was all very fake. It was all manufactured and then artificially solved. And so many young women are buying into the angsty victim liberation mentality young. That's why we're seeing a lot of our generation very angry, very frustrated, they feel a righteous anger against the oppressors. They feel they're being oppressed, victimized. And the reality is that this victim to phoenix rising rat race, because it really is a rat race, y'all. There was always something that we could identify that we were being a victim about, because that is a part of the human nature, to feel like it's somebody else's fault. We're the oppressed. That is a very easy place for humans to live, to be there. It's a function. It's purposeful for our own self-worship and self-pleasure, right? And so this constant rat race of victim to phoenix rising is a part of the cultural norm that we've created. Think about it, like the stereotypes around young women. Oh, they're angsty. They have this victim mentality, but they'll rise from the ashes, and then they'll be powerful, and they'll be able to speak through the hard victim mentality of where they've been. And while I absolutely will acknowledge the fact that women we have a lot that we go through. There's a lot of struggles. There's a lot of hard stuff. There's a lot of identity stuff. We're very emotional. We're very internal. We're very even like intellectual in a lot of ways. We think a lot. We feel a lot. All of those things are wonderful until they're used as the tool to point the finger and to create chaos. And this was very much the undertones of what I experienced as a student always in this world of modern transformational leadership in modern psychology. And it got to the point where it was celebrated to experiment with evil, like what really is truly evil, to experiment with the darker side of who you were, that you didn't really know who you truly were until you experimented both with the light and the dark. And so it led us inevitably into directions of manipulation, of just using our own emotions as a weapon against ourselves and against other people and against God. That there wasn't objective truth, that there wasn't anything real, that it was only what I created in my own mind, my own reality, all this stuff. Now, the reason I'm sharing this as a personal story is because this is what is going on. This is the verbiage, this is the culture that is being pushed at young women. If you have been through this in your own stories, I want you to come find me. Come find me. I want to hear your stories. I will honor if you don't want them shared, but I want to hear your stories. If you're like this and you've experienced this world and seeing how it's a bunch of lies, it's an inevitably elaborately created rat race of your own making, then please come find me and share your story. We have to speak up on behalf of, to advocate for the young women that are getting swept into this cultural disaster, this cultural chaos. Because not only are they taking our young years, not only are they taking money, resources, time, but they're taking they're taking so much from young women. They're taking their own choice away in so many ways. And I want you to hear what I mean when I say this. We thought we were choosing. I thought that I was choosing, but all I was choosing were the fake artificially made choices in my own fake world. I wasn't choosing to get out of bed and do my chores and live in my real life and interact with my real parents and be in my real community. I was waking up and choosing between being a victim in my horrible, awful world or being empowered in my future self. None of these things were actually real. They weren't a part of my real life. And so my choices, although I felt empowered doing them, my choices were just making a bunch of fake, like solving a bunch of fake problems with fake solutions. So many of the women that we see around us who have no anchor, no identity, no security in who they are, that's being defined by something bigger than their own belief system about themselves, which is really just tied to their emotions, which is tied to their thought life, which are all chaotic in and of themselves. All of these women that have no identity, no anchor, are running around in life looking for something. They're searching. You may not see them as searching, and this is where we get to change our attitude and our approach towards young women who are angry, who are frustrated, who are passionately speaking out about things that may make you uncomfortable. Listen to me. These women are searching. They're looking for answers. They're looking for answers through their anger. They're looking for answers through their frustration. They're looking for answers through their sexual identity, through their identity as an individual, through their identity as a woman, through their identity as whatever else they're making up themselves. They're looking for answers. And for many of these women, they're looking for answers because they feel lost. And when they go to bed at night, even though their social media reeks of confidence and self-assuredness and fire and power, they go to bed at night feeling alone, feeling a false sense of confidence. They know it's false. They know it's fake because they go to bed at night feeling lonely and sad and depressed and frustrated. Y'all, I know this because I know so many women that I've worked with that have been here in this seat, the mothers of these children, these young women themselves, and also my own story. People say all the time that I look so confident, that I look so self-assured, especially in those seasons when I was so involved in my own manipulation of my reality and being my own God to worship. I seemed very confident, very self-assured, very, very in control of my life. And I was super insecure and lonely and sad and depressed and looking desperately for the results in my life to be the reason that I was good enough. And then trying to let go of that constant attachment to what I was creating by being good enough just by myself, which at the end of the day was a rat race of its own making. Because when I looked in the mirror, I saw my broken words. I saw my insecurity. I saw my lack of confidence. I saw my deception, my own manipulation, my lies, my sin. I saw the things that I didn't like about myself. And I felt shame about those things. And where do we put that shame? Well, we change it into something else, right? This is the mentality and the attitude of modern psychology and transformational leadership. You change it into something that's beautiful and amazing, and it's that phoenix rising moment. And at the end of the day, those things still rung true. When I looked in the mirror, without all of the facade, without all the fake stuff, that was the stuff that rang true. So when I look at these young women, I don't look in judgment. I don't look in frustration and pointing of the finger. I look at lost, lonely women, and the only hands that are being reached out to them are the ones of culture, the people who are doing this to them and speaking to the lies that we want to believe in, that our heart and our own sinful desire actually want us to follow. Speaking to the satanic, demonic stuff that we're drawn to, right? And, especially for young women who don't have any other positive role models that are advocating for them, that are speaking to them, that are encouraging them to move in the right direction, to have good character, to have objective truth be anchored into their life, to have a worldview that's driven from a place that will not change, that isn't going to just change with the wind. These women, they need these women. But if they don't have them, then they grow up in a world that is subjective at best and evil at most. And they follow that road until it leads them ultimately to eternal death. My friends, these young women are more medicated and more depressed than any other generation. We need to have compassion for them, not judgment and a nose up in the air against them. Is it frustrating sometimes to look at these women and only see the self-absorbed selfishness that we so often easily judge? Absolutely, is it frustrating. But this is a part of the lies that they've been fed. It's the part of the lies that they have been told will bring them to a place that doesn't feel so lonely, that doesn't feel so empty and discouraging and depressing. They're looking for answers. And it's sad to me that there are not more young women out there that are reaching out a hand of compassion and truth, that are holding both boldness of truth and grace and compassion for these young women. I want to see more young women standing for truth in a gracious and loving and generous way. And that is truly what I care most about. It's what I want to create in the world. It's what I want to stand for, being used by God to actually speak to young women in a way that respects them enough to tell them the truth and loves them enough to do it in a way that is actually digestible and gracious and something that they can actually receive. And that is what I want for young leaders who see this, who are conscious to it. So, if you're a young woman and you're listening to this, please reach out to me. Please comment down below. I want to know where you are. There are very, very few of us, but there are some of us. I want to know where you are, and I want to encourage you, and I want to support you in any way that I can, and be the iron sharpen iron in your life around who you're standing up for and how you're standing, and reminding you to stand on the word of God, reminding you to stand on truth, and do it in a way that is gracious and loving. That is the message that I will ring true every single week that I send one of these out. And yes, we'll be talking about particular things. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, this is a call to young women who see what's happening to our culture, who's seeing what is happening to our generations, to our own peers, and want to stand up and actually speak truth in grace and love to these young women. I'll catch you on the next episode of False Confidence.